How's everybody's Monday going? Is it all Monday blues or is it not going too bad? Okay. Hello. Okay, so I'm going to, the only downside is you can't see it when you first join. So, okay, if you're on the clock app, I have a poll going on what we want to talk about. I'm going to put it here on the comments for Facebook and YouTube. So we'll do this. Thank you for your words of encouragement and reference. Oh, it's my pleasure. I've been there, so I know how it is. Like, absolutely know how it is. I'm a newbie here. Well, welcome. Just so you guys know, I try not to say like names. So if you comment, I try not to say your name on it, just to keep everything private since I'm on 3 different platforms at once. Hello. I'm from West Virginia. That's one state that I've actually not been to. Might have driven. No, I don't even think I've driven through it. I'm feeling stuck with my ADHD. Oh, Lord. In what way are you feeling stuck? I don't know if I'd be able to help with that, but I can try. Okay, so if you're on Facebook and YouTube, I'm putting a comment on there with like 4 different options of what we want to talk about. So feel free to comment on there and let me know what your vote is. And if you're on TikTok, I have an active poll going. We'll give it a few minutes. I don't know about where y'all are at, but I am over in Texas and it has been so cold today. I think it's supposed to warm up the rest of this week though. Okay, so we got a vote for managing emotions. That one's usually a pretty popular vote. Oh, you're up in Tennessee? I love Tennessee. I used to go visit there every summer because I had family up there. Okay, another vote for obsessive thinking. Perfect. Nashville is one of my favorite places to go and visit at. Okay, yeah, we've got votes for obsessive thinking and emotional management on all platforms. So with managing emotions, everything just comes out all at once in spurts. Yeah, and honestly, that's very typical. So we'll obviously I'll just get a little snippet on that because that's a really good point. I think a lot of us deal with that when it comes to emotional management. First thing to understand is after trauma, one of like the classic symptoms of traumatic experiences and signs of trauma is emotional dysregulation. In this situation, when you're getting out of these relationships, if you think about it, being able to have emotions in those relationships was not safe. Like it wasn't even an option. Like it wasn't about you. It wasn't about how you felt. If you showed how you felt, you got repercussions for it. We'll just say that. So it's like now that you get out of those relationships, your brain knows because it's not under that constant stimulation of danger, essentially. It's like your brain knows that it's safe to start processing some of those things, and they just start to just they just come out. um, and it can be very overwhelming. And that's why, actually, in my course that I wrote in Breaking Free from Rumination, I have a whole week that's dedicated to emotional management. When I do group coaching, there's one, we do like sessions of 6. I do a whole session on managing emotion and triggers, because it is a very serious issue, and it's frustrating, because it's just, you feel like it almost makes you struggle, like not even being able to just like do normal everyday tasks, because they'll just hit you like in a wave. So that's a big reason why it happens. And I think sometimes when we understand the why, it makes us feel a little bit less crazy. At least it did for me, anyways. Um, so that's it's very, very natural. I'm just checking to see. And honestly, like right now, the top 2 votes everywhere is obsessive thinking and managing emotions. And honestly, those really go hand in hand. So that makes total sense. So we'll probably talk about both, unless one of the other 2 just comes in from behind. Why does the narcissist hold on to the old supply without wanting a relationship? It's fun. I'm giggling because I literally just posted something about this on my story on Instagram today. Which, by the way, guys, if you're not following me on the other platforms, especially if you're here on TikTok, y'all know all the drama that's happening with this app. And no, TikTok doesn't like me doing this, but make sure you're following me on everything. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. So if anything does happen to TikTok, you can still stay in touch with me. But and my handle is pretty much the same on everything, but on Instagram, there's a 1 at the end of it. Anyways, sorry, I got distracted. I think a big reason why, I don't think I know, a big reason why narcissistic and toxic people like to stay in your life, even if they don't want to be in a relationship with you, like after it's done. Because I went through this. Like, my ex was very adamant about staying friends with me, and I was very ignorant to how these people operated, because I wasn't on anything, didn't really have the education at all. So I completely fell for it. Um, and there's several reasons to it. There's some situational reasons depending on the person. They could be trying to just keep up with you and keep tabs on you. They could be trying to compete with you. They can definitely be trying to um, show you that they are doing just fine without you. I think that's why they did a lot of holding on to like the old supply, even if it's just like stay in contact or stay on social media and all that stuff. But really, ultimately, at the end of the day, this is pretty much the case for every situation, everything they do is about power and control. And I think when they know that they still have you connected to them in some way in their twisted mind, it is their way of still having you bonded to them, if that makes sense. Um, and it's just, and I know this is going to sound very harsh, but it's another way that they're using you for your own supply. And I think that's pretty standard for everything. And then the other reasons are a little bit more situational. Mine was definitely about keeping tabs with me so that way he could compete. And it was very obvious what he was doing. That part I caught on to myself after a little while. It was like stupid things. Like, I would post a selfie on Snapchat on my story, and then 5 or 10 minutes later he would have one. And I had started to lose weight, so I was like feeling myself a little bit. So I would like post a picture of me being shirtless or whatever, and then all of a sudden he goes and gets this whole photo shoot done. Like, it was just very obvious what he was doing. You know, it was just a little comical. But it's ultimately about power control. The podcast you did with the Narc and me, Ashley, was fantastic. I listened to it 3 times. Oh, I'm glad you listened and saw it. If you guys aren't following that podcast, I know for a fact it's on Apple Podcasts, and I'm pretty sure she's on Spotify too. But it's called The Narc and Me. I've actually done 2 episodes with her, and Ashley is one of my favorite individuals on this planet. She is so sweet, and she also she's very vulnerable and shares her story, and she's great. And her podcast is fantastic. She brings in all these different experts from different perspectives and stuff. So please check out her podcast. It's called The Narc and Me, like narc and sign me. And I know for a fact she's on Apple, and I'm pretty sure she's on Spotify too. I'm so glad you're alive. I have something to talk to you about. Well, fire away, girl. I'm going to give it like 5 more minutes on the poll just to see if anything else changes. But as of now, right now, it looks like we're going to be talking about obsessive thinking, emotions, coming on everything. I'm going to repost this. Wait. Oh, yeah. I forgot I could do this. I'm putting this on, if you're on my other platforms, I'm showing it on my screen. So you can vote if you want to in the comments for me, because I can't do a poll on there. While we're waiting for that, I did want to make a quick announcement too, just so everybody's aware. I literally just announced this today. So one of the things that I have really been thinking about a lot is just where I wanted the directions of my platforms to go. And I get a lot of questions all the time, like even on lives and comments on all my platforms and everything. I get questions about the how-tos, like how do you do this? How do you process this? Like how do you manage your emotions? How do you get over the obsessive thinking? And I don't really get a lot of questions about like, what is XYZ? Like what is love bombing? Blah, blah, blah. And what this is kind of telling me is that there's just narcissistic abuse is very trendy, and it's way more trendy than it was when I first started 2 years ago. So I think there's enough information out there, and there's just not enough of the how-tos and the implementation. So I also wanted to make myself more accessible into a way that's not controlled by an algorithm. So I've decided to launch a coaching community. It's called Trey's Tribe. Right now, it is still very much in the concept phase. And what I'm wanting to do is I'm actually inviting anybody that wants to be what's called a founding member with me. And as a founding member, you would actually help me build this community from the ground up. So you would give me ideas of what you want to see on a weekly or monthly basis. I even had someone already give me an idea about posting articles and all this kind of stuff, which I thought was a great idea. And it's those kind of things that I need. So founding members, since it's brand new and it's being built, the founding members, it's only $25 a month. What we're going to do is we're going to work together for like a month, maybe two, and then I'll relaunch it and it will be at a higher price because it'll be more built at that point. But founding members stay locked in as long as they're part of the community. So if you are interested in that, just send me a DM on any platform. There's also a link in my bio that you can just go straight to and get more information. But please send me a DM if you have any questions about it, and I'll be sure to answer them. But I just wanted to make sure that you guys knew that before we kind of got started into this. I'm very excited about it because my heart is in the healing journey, and for me, it's not about just getting over the narcissistic individual. It's really about building a life that you're proud of, and about building the self-confidence and the self-esteem and being able to hold firm boundaries and getting to the place where you value yourself enough to not accept anything other than love, respect, and value from other people. Like it's so much more than just getting over this toxic person. And that's what the whole heart of the coaching community will be. So I'm making a lot of changes with just what I do. And a lot of things are going to be going towards that community right now. So I'm very, very excited. And yes, if you have my email, you can definitely email me too. But like I said, if you have questions, just send me a DM. On any platform except for YouTube. I don't think it works that way on YouTube. In other ways, outside of that, there's also the link in my bio too. Okay, so there were some comments that came through, so let me just scroll through these really fast. I haven't seen you live for a while. I know, I'm really bad about it. I'm sorry. And there's so many times where I sit down and I'm like, I'm gonna go live today, and then I don't. I don't want to read this one out loud. Hold on. Okay, so someone had a pretty bad incident on Friday, but they still want to be around them. And like, I want him to call and apologize or something. Okay, so let's talk about this really quick because I think we can all identify with that, regardless of how bad or the level of severity of the situation was. First of all, I'm really sorry that you went through specifically what you went through. I just didn't want to read it out loud because that's terrifying. We live with this whole Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde kind of thing. Hi, red high heels, I miss you. And we have this version of them that they created for us, like in the love bombing phase in the beginning, and we hold on to that image. And every once in a while through the relationship, they kind of like, oh, don't apologize. I was just trying to protect your privacy, hon. Nothing to be sorry for. I'm glad you talked about this. But they kind of show us this little version of them throughout the relationship too. of what they created for us. And then there's the Mr. Hyde, which is who they really are. Um, and it's kind of like we deal with the Mr. Hyde part because we get these doses of the Dr. Jekyll. And that is, and we can go into like all the terms about like, euphoric recall and cognitive dissonance, blah, blah, blah. Like, bottom line, what this is, is we didn't fall for the Mr. Hyde. We fell for the Dr. Jekyll. And that's the version that we hold on to. And they're very smart about giving us little, like I mentioned, little doses of that throughout the relationship. So when something bad happens, it's like our brain has been trained to know that Dr. Jekyll's coming soon. And so we like wait for that and we want that. And then when we get it, that addiction, quote unquote, is reinforced. And if you don't know, I'm getting my doctorate in occupational therapy school. We've actually studied substance abuse like really heavily. And if y'all haven't heard, they're starting to call these trauma bonded relationships love addictions. Well, in regular substance abuse, the most dopamine that's released in substance abuse cycles is not actually when you get the dose of whatever it is that you're addicted to. It's actually the anticipation of using. So it's the same thing in these relationships because the neurotransmitters are very similar in this. And there's a whole bunch of research about it. So please don't argue with me. Just saying. It works the exact same way. You get the most dosage of this dopamine with the anticipation of the Dr. Jekyll coming back. And then it's there and it's reinforced and you're back in the cycle. The thing that we have to remember is that the Dr. Jekyll really truly is a facade. Like it is, and it was a facade that was specifically created for you intentionally. And the reality is there was never a Dr. Jekyll. There was always a Mr. Hyde in disguise. And you just have to, and I know it's a very painful thing to accept, and it's a very, I mean, I don't want to use the word traumatizing because that's that's a little much, but there's a lot of pain in acceptance. There just is. And our brain is also very, very good at protecting itself from pain, which is why we divert from acceptance because it's trying to avoid the pain of acceptance. So that's why we say things like, well, I know there's a good person deep down, and I know there's this, and well, I wasn't perfect too, and this and that. And it's because it's like we're afraid of just admitting they're just Mr. Hyde. And I know that that's a lot easier said than done, but you just have to constantly remind yourself, not in a dwelling kind of way, but when you question who they are, you have to remind yourself of the experience that you went through. And honestly, what I did was I wrote it down because there were times where I couldn't, speaking of emotional management, when I just would get to this place where like I missed them or just got really sad or whatever, and I was confused, I would go back to that list and I would remind myself. So it wasn't that I was trying to live in the past. It was like I was trying to correct my thinking of like, no, I don't miss any of this. What I miss right now is I just miss having a partner. I miss sharing my life with somebody. Like I just miss that void that was filled. But I don't miss this because this is what my reality was. And when you're dealing with this like craziness in our emotions, you forget sometimes. And so that's why I think it's important to write it down, because on the times where you don't have the strength to do it on your own, you can refer back to the list. That was really long. I'm sorry. That was like uber long-winded. That's my danger with lives. Because see, when I'm recording a video, it tells me like how much time I have left on live. I don't have that. So I'm just kidding. Go on a tangent. Okay, so it looks like I think it's done. No, it's not. Yes, it is. Okay, yeah. So the poll is done on TikTok too. So yeah, the top two things that were voted were it changed. It's obsessive thinking and no contact. We'll just talk about. You know what? Honestly, we're gonna make them all work together. So I love your rants. Well, I'm glad that you do because they just come when they want to come. Okay, so I want you guys to comment on here. Let's just do this. When it comes to the emotional management side, I want everybody to comment what is the emotion that they feel like they are struggling with managing the most. So whether it's sadness, whether it's grief, whether you feel like it's like straight up depression, is it anger? What is the emotion that you are feeling like you are struggling managing? Or if there's more than one, comment more than one. But I want to hear what you guys feel like you are struggling with. So we have someone say guilt. That's a huge one. Absolutely. Grief and anger, loneliness, sadness, anger and grief. Thank you guys for sharing too, by the way. Self-doubt. Ooh, that's a big one. Depression and grief. Frustration, guilt, shame, regret. Anybody else on like Facebook and YouTube? What emotions are you struggling with? TikTok's blowing it up over here. Thank you guys. Disbelief, that's a good one. Anxiety. Oh, yeah, classic trauma symptom. Shame, depression, guilt, anger, a lot of grief, regret, guilt, low self-esteem. Okay. Anger. We're seeing anger a lot. Anxiety and worry, I'm going to kind of lump those two together. At first it was grief, now it's turning into resentment. Ooh, I can talk about that one a lot. The resentment part. That's the part we have to be careful about. Feeling like I made a mistake, giving him up, but after watching platforms like you, I realized I'm only giving up my peace. Oh, thank you. Okay, so anger is a common one that we're seeing. Sad and angry all the time. Anger is a huge one. Grief, regret, shame. Okay, so really, no matter what the reason why I asked you to name it, that's a practice that I want you to start implementing like right now. Is just having a check-in with yourself every day and just ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Because when you can actually sit down and name the emotion that you're feeling in the moment. Oh, thanks for the crown. Sorry if you're not on TikTok, that did not make sense. But when you can actually sit down and name the emotion that you're feeling, it actually does lower the intensity of the emotion. So I want you guys to think about this. I'm sure if you have kids, you can relate to this. So my youngest, he's 3, love him to pieces, but he is the most stubborn of all 3 of my children. I have 3, and he's more stubborn than my older 2 combined. And so if I tell him like, hey bud, like, don't do this or don't do that, as soon as I turn my back, what is he doing? He's doing the exact same thing that I told him not to. We kind of work the same way. Like, all we are is just grown kids. You know what I mean? Like, that's all adulthood is we're just, anyways. When you try to suppress the emotions and you try to ignore them or push them off, they actually become more intense because they're trying to get themselves processed. Like your brain is trying to get rid of it. Essentially, it's trying to process what's going on. So when you can actually sit down and just be honest with yourself and just embrace the feeling that you're having in that moment, it does lower the intensity of it. And there is research that backs this. And I actually, in my course, Breaking Free from Rumination, on the emotional management side, I link some of these articles that backs what I'm saying. But so when you can, and you can name it and just be okay with it and just name the emotion and name what you're feeling without judging it, just accepting it. And you can almost do like this visualization practice with it where you just close your eyes and you're just like, you know what? I feel angry today. I feel angry about this situation. And when you're visualizing it, almost visualize yourself embracing it and just bringing it in. And when you do that, it will lower the intensity of it. Just trust. And this is coming from somebody who, what I used to do pretty much since I was like 13 years old is I got really good at blocking off negative emotions like guilt and like shame and embarrassment and all of this because I was bullied a lot in high school and I didn't want to deal with it. So I just blocked it off. Well, the problem was your brain doesn't really process the negatives. And what I mean by that is like, if I tell you don't think about a purple elephant, the first thing you're going to think about is a purple elephant because your brain doesn't register the don't. It doesn't register the negatives. It just registers the subject. So if I'm telling my brain, I don't want to deal with the negative emotions, I'm not going to feel the negative emotions, then actually what it's doing is it's registering that command as I'm not feeling emotions. And over time, when you do this practice, you actually accidentally end up blocking yourself off from all of the positive stuff too. So like your peace and your joy and your happiness. And that's why you can see certain situations in people where they have all these good things going on in their life, but they just can't find a way to be happy. Well, it's because in somewhere along the way, they've trained themselves to not feel the emotions. And the only way to break that and the only way to prevent that from happening as well is just to be okay with them. You have every right to be angry. You have every right to, feel the resentment, and you have every right to be sad. Like, if regardless of how good or bad this relationship was, it's still a relationship, and there's normal emotions that just go along with the relationship ending. And a big mistake that I see people make when I'm working with them and coaching them is that they feel like they shouldn't have some of these emotions because this person was so terrible. So it's like, well, I shouldn't be sad that this terrible person's not in my life anymore. They were awful. Or I shouldn't, feel guilty that I left them. Or I shouldn't, be ashamed because I know that they manipulated me, blah, blah, blah. And they try to almost tell themselves they don't have a right to feel the way that they feel. You have every right to feel the way that you feel. Yes, they were terrible. Yes, they did awful things. Yes, they violated you, but it's still a relationship. This person still played a valuable role in your life. One, like, they occupied space in your life. It's okay to feel these things, and we just have to almost stop treating ourselves the way that they treated us, because those were things that they would say to us. Well, you don't have a right to be mad. Well, you don't have a right to do this. This is all, blah, blah, blah. And we have to stop treating ourselves the way that the narcissistic and toxic person treated us. And we have to treat ourselves with more love and more grace. So the fact that you guys are able to sit down and this is what I'm struggling with and this is what I'm feeling, that's a great thing. And hold on to that. So every day, just check in with yourself. And one of the things that one of my favorite emotional management strategies that I did personally was journaling. And I know a lot of people don't like to journal. A lot of people do, but some people don't because they feel like it's homework. You don't have to write a book. Like, you don't. But there were some days where I wrote 5 sentences, and yes, there were some days I wrote 5 pages. But that was part of the way that I checked in with myself every day. And I actually did it before bed, because there was just and I know now why, but there was something about like 7:30 at night when everything would hit me. I would overall be fine throughout the day, and then I would get home and I would get settled, and 7:30 would hit, and for some reason it was always around that time every night where it would all just come, and it was so freaking frustrating. So I would sit down and I kept my journal at my bedside table, so that way I would remind me, do this before you go to bed, and it kind of would allow me to process what had happened throughout the day or what I was feeling in that moment. And that way I didn't carry it over into the next day too. And I did that every single day, sometimes multiple times a day for 6 weeks straight. And I'm not exaggerating. It was every single day. And then honestly, because I was giving myself permission to feel it and be okay with it, after that 6 weeks, I was just kind of able to recognize it, process it, and move on. And I still journal to this day. Like, don't get me wrong, but I don't do it every day. It's kind of more of an as needed thing, especially if I get stressed out. I like to journal my thoughts. It's like a brain dump. Like, it just gets me all out of my head. But I did it every single day. I even brought my journal to work sometimes, especially in like the rough beginning phases. And sometimes I would step away from work for about 5 minutes and just journal how I was feeling, because I couldn't even operate at work. So you just gotta do what you gotta do. Sorry, I'm checking comments everywhere really fast to make sure I didn't miss a question or anything like that. So guys, if you feel like something like this is helpful for you in general, like I mentioned earlier, this is the kind of stuff that we would be doing in the coaching community that I just launched. So we would be having weekly content that was put out. That I know for a fact. And I know for a fact that I would be doing a live every month where it's kind of like a masterclass training, almost kind of like this. And I'm even thinking about bringing people in, and it's still in the concept phase. So I'm still kind of figuring everything out. But this is the kind of stuff that we'd be talking about and we'd be working on in the coaching community. So I just launched it. It's called Trey's Tribe. Right now I'm inviting people to be founding members. It's only $25 a month, and you're locked in as a founding member regardless of what the price ends up doing when we relaunch it, we'll work together, build it from the ground up. You would get direct access to me to give me feedback on what you'd like to see, content ideas, anything like that. And a lot of this implementation stuff, that's everything that's going to be in that coaching community. I love what I do with the narcissistic hotline and Mind of the Narc and all of that, but my heart's really in the implementation side of things. So if you're interested in being a founding member, please just send me a DM. I'll answer any questions that you have. There's also a link in my bio and all my platforms too. But we'd be doing and talking about this kind of stuff all the time. Do you have a book? I have a journal. So the practice that I used the most during the 6-week time period was something called the Wellness Wheel Journal, or the Wellness Wheel. It's a concept that my therapist taught me, and I applied it in a way of self-care, but not in the way that like society defines self-care. I just define it in a way like taking care of myself. So it's called the Wellness Wheel Journal. It's this one right here. Actually, it's right next to me. It's on Amazon. Usually I have the link of it in my bio, but I have my link to my coaching community right now. But essentially what this does is it helps you start to create new healthy habits and routines. While we're on that subject, regardless of the journal, I think this is important to talk about. So I just said regardless of this, and I mean it. So developing new habits and routines. Why is this important? So when you're in the relationship, and again, if you guys don't know, I'm getting my doctorate in occupational therapy. So I've learned a lot about trauma, studied the brain and what happens with trauma, like all this stuff. And I'm like, I can geek out on this stuff really bad, so I'm going to try to not. When you're in the relationship, there's a particular portion of our brain, I'm just going to use common terms here, that they refer to as the emotional brain. And then there's another portion of our brain that's called the logic brain. So when you're in these relationships, you're constantly operating out of your emotional brain. Why? Because the parts of the brain that are the emotional brain, that's the part that really sends the message to the rest of your body. Well, anyways, it's the one that activates your fight or flight. It has to go through different processes in the brain and all of that. But your emotional brain is the one that sends the message that we need to go into fight or flight mode. So when you're operating out of the emotional brain, hi, Carrie, your logic brain kind of gets put on the back burner a little bit because it's prioritizing that emotional brain, because the emotional brain is what's going to shut down most of like and again, I'm dumbing this down like really much. I'm not dumbing it down. That sounds nasty. I'm using common words. I didn't mean that the way it sounded. I'm sorry. But essentially what it's doing is it's activating the fight or flight. So when you're constantly in this chaotic environment, your brain is craving that consistency and it's craving that safety. And that's what habits and routines give us. If we think about it when it comes to child development, one of the things that is most important for children to develop in a healthy way is to have that consistency. We all know that. Well, that doesn't change just because we grow up and we become an adult. The difference is that we're in charge of our own consistency. We're not dependent upon our parents or anybody else. We create the consistency for us. So developing these habits and routines, and I'm talking about like literally simple stuff, like doing your nighttime skincare routine every night, going on a walk every other day, doing things at home that are part of your habits and part of your routines. It actually gives your brain the consistency that it's been craving this entire time that you've been in the relationship, and it gives you that sense of safety, and it does increase that sense of peace and mental clarity because your brain is used to this emotional brain driven lifestyle, and it's really, really wanting to bring that logical brain back in. And that's also part of the reason why when we talk about the emotions just kind of start flooding, is because everything calms down. Because when your logical brain comes back in, that's when your body goes back into homeostasis. That's when the fight or flight chills out and all of that. It's because you're starting to operate in a normal and typical and safe brain functioning, if that makes sense. So sorry, I geek out of that and kind of lose track of my words because I also want to like not get too complicated, but also say the right thing. But that's why your habits and routines are going to be important. So the first thing I would do, no matter whether you do this, whether you don't, I don't care. What I do care about is sit down and think about things that bring you joy and that fill your cup that you haven't been doing in a while, whether it's because you couldn't or because you just didn't have the energy to, and start making a plan to incorporate these back into your daily and weekly habits. So part of it for me was journaling. Like I said, I started working out again. I started to spend quality time with my friends. Now, mind you, when I was going through all of this, it was May of 2020. We were in the heart of COVID. I couldn't go out with my friends. So I was doing FaceTime dates with them, spending quality time with my family. And again, that got a little bit tricky because of COVID. I'm trying to think of the other things that I was incorporating a lot. Oh, well, once the world opened back up again, like one of my guilty pleasures is tanning. It just makes me feel better. I just feel more confident. So I started doing that again and doing that more consistently because it just made me feel better. So there were some like typical self-care stuff that I was incorporating that too, but it was the things that I could do at home on a daily basis that's what really helps solidify those habits and routines. Please start incorporating those. Make a list of things you haven't done in a while and just make a plan and meet yourself where you're at. Don't try to do like, oh, I'm going to do all of these things this week. Maybe you're not there. Maybe your goal is, I'm just going to do my nighttime routine every night this week, and anything else I do is bonus. That's great. Just meet yourself where you're at, and it's okay to not shoot for the stars right off the bat. Sometimes you just got to get going. And the reason I'm talking about this too, that actually does help with the obsessive thinking. It does help with the emotional management because again, it's giving you that consistency, and it's also having you find new ways or old ways that you're reincorporating to occupy your physical and mental energy. Because, I'm saying this with love to all of you on this call. It was said to me, it hurt when it was said to me, only because it was true. So I'm gonna say it to y'all too. Just know it's coming from love, okay? If we have all this time and all this mental energy to be thinking about them, replaying the relationship, wonder what they're doing and who they're doing it with, and all of that, then y'all, we've got the time and the energy to be putting it back into ourselves. We just have to make that mental switch. And I know that's easier said than done, but we cannot sit here and wait for our feelings to dictate our actions. You are never going to feel like getting this stuff started again. You're never going to feel like making the right steps. You're not. It's the same thing with like me and working out. I've been on a health and fitness journey for 5 years at this point, and I used to be a big boy. I used to be 270 pounds. That's a separate subject. But even to this day, I do not feel like going to the gym every day. And I'm not a gym rat. I usually work out about like maybe 5 days a week. But I don't feel like it. Like most of the time I don't. Most of the time I would rather just go straight home, or I would rather keep sleeping. And sometimes I do. And I'm usually bitching and moaning and complaining the entire time I'm going to the gym, the whole warm up, the first 5 to 10 minutes that I'm there. Like, I'm not pleasant. Like, please don't talk to me at that moment in time. But then once I get going, the endorphins start to kick in. I realize why I'm doing it. It's because I want to stay healthy and be active with my kids and this and that. And it just reminds me of why I'm doing it. So a lot of times the actions, and they're the right actions, they will create the feelings. I want you to think about that in the perspective too. When we let our feelings determine our actions, and then we do the actions like, and y'all know, please understand, I'm saying this with love too. I'm just passionate about it. If we decide the actions to continue to unblock and block them, or break our no contact, or stay in bed, or whatever we do, it just reinforces those negative feelings and it keeps you in that cyclical cycle. If we want to feel different, then we have to do different. It's just simple math, really. And we just have to do what we know is right first, and the feelings will follow. Again, rant number 3 from me today. I'm just going to start. It's just a blanket apology for my rants. I'm not going to say sorry anymore. I'll be saying sorry all night. Okay. So another part that would actually help me with the obsessive thinking part. And y'all, this was the part that took me the longest to get over. Like, the longest to get over. And it was very frustrating because it felt very addictive, in the sense that it just felt very much out of my control. You were a daily dose rant reminder I need. And we need your rants. Okay, good. So anyways, it was by far the hardest part of this journey to get past for me. And this is what also made me realize that this was not just a normal breakup because I had never dealt with this in this capacity until then. I had to do a lot of corrective thinking. And I want to, I like to explain the why about things. So I'm going to briefly explain why this happens. Um, if you think about it, when you're in the relationship with narcissistic and toxic people, you're constantly in a state of obsessive thinking. It's just, it looks different. It's going to be, well, what version of them's coming home today? What version of them's going to wake up this morning? Are they lying to me right now? And if they are, do I really want to know the truth? And if I like, am I going to pursue this? Like, you're walking on eggshells. Like, if you get the text, like, I'm heading home and you haven't picked up the house yet, then you frantically start to clean the house. Any of this sounding familiar, by the way? Um, that's what the obsessive thinking looks like in the relationship. What you've developed is just a really bad mental habit. And unfortunately, the ending of the relationship doesn't break the habit. Habits don't just break, they actually have to be replaced with a healthier habit. So a lot of times we try to willpower our way out of a habit. And that just doesn't work. That doesn't work if you're trying to quit smoking, if you're trying to quit drinking, if you're trying to work out again, or whatever it may be. Like that doesn't work. Like, if you think about it, if you're trying to, like, there's like, I've had friends and family members that have, quit smoking and stuff. And I remember one of my friends, I don't know if this is a healthy habit, but they told me, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of this. There's like a rubber band method. Y'all can try this with obsessive. They actually don't. I'm not recommending this. But anytime that they like wanted to smoke, they would pop themselves with a rubber band. I'm just like, well, it's a little intense, but maybe some people like they chew gum instead, or they, have mints or like whatever it may be. So they're trying to get rid of a habit by replacing it with another one. I'm not telling you guys to go out and start popping yourself with rubber bands every time you have this negative thought. But, in a way, I can see how that could work too, because it's like, oh, I have this negative thought, and then you have like a slight pain stimulus. I don't know. It could go back to Pavlov's dogs essentially on that. I don't know. That's got me thinking. I'm still not recommending it. But that's what's happened. You developed a really bad mental habit. Okay, y'all are saying the rubber band thing is true. Okay, I just literally just recently heard about this, that it's a thing. So apparently it's a thing, and apparently it works. But again, I don't know if I can really legally recommend you. I don't know if ethically I can do that. Go pop yourself with rubber bands every time you think about your ex. I don't know. You do you. Not necessarily recommending it. But when you get out of the relationship, you're still stuck in this mental habit. It just looks different. It looks like, well, what are they doing now? It could be like, I was a pro at cyber stalking. Like, I could teach a course on it. I'm not going to, but I could. I was doing that a lot. Like, and by the way, and just in case you ever get tempted, if you unblock somebody on Facebook, all of my Facebook people, you have to wait 48 hours before you can block them back again. So please don't do that. Learn from my mistake. Instagram, that one's a little bit more tricky because you can technically block and unblock. That one, you just have to redirect yourself. But it can look like that. It can look like you could even be cyber stalking the new supply. It can just be replaying the relationship over and over again. And now hear me on this, especially on that. I do think that there is a portion of the obsessive thinking that's good. And here's why. Because I do think that's important, that it is important for you to be able to look back on the relationship without the rose-colored glasses, without the emotional brain, and with the logical brain, and really understand what the hell has happened to you. Because you have to be able to define and accept your reality. The problem with that is that it's so effed up, and there's so many things that you don't know and you will never know. And if you're like me and you like to know the why behind things, the problem is that can actually get you stuck into a dwelling phase and an obsessive thinking phase. That's where the balance has to come from. So if you find yourself repeatedly asking yourself the same question over and over again, I'll just use a personal experience. Mine was all about cheating. He cheated on me the last 5 months of our relationship. I wanted to know all the details about it. Where did it happen? When did it happen? How many people was it? Blah, blah, blah. I knew of at least 3. I knew it had been going on for at least 5 months. I knew it was random people. It wasn't an affair. It was just hoeing around. So, I mean, I knew a lot, but I wanted to know everything. Why? I don't know. It's not like that would have helped me, but that's what I was stuck on. I was never going to get the answer to those questions. Never. Because it's not like he was ever going to admit them. And I had screenshots from people and even sent them to him. Don't waste your time. He still denied it and tried to make me feel crazy and all of that. And someone just commented, sometimes the ignorance is bliss. But the unfortunate part is that we can get we can get stuck on these unanswered questions. If you're stuck in an unanswered question, you're probably not going to know the answer to it. And sometimes you even do figure out an answer to a question, but the problem is that answer leads to 6 more questions. And it's just this, it's a mess. So one of the things that I would do is, and I'm going to give y'all this little practice too. Normally I only do this on my coaching calls, but I'm going to do this with y'all today. I want you to write down the things that you are normally obsessively thinking about. So whether, like for my example, if it was the cheating, whatever it might be, like the thing that you feel like you're the most stuck on, or things that you feel like you are stuck on. When you write these down, create a corrective thought. And what I mean by that is, so we'll just stick on the cheating one since that was my lived experience. So what I would say to myself when that thought would spark, when that thought would spark in my head, I think I said that correctly, is I would say to myself, maybe there's a reason I don't know all these details. Maybe I don't need to know all these details. And the reality is, I know enough. It happened. It was at least 3 people. I know enough. I don't need to know anything else. And then what I would do is I would do something that physically redirected me. So if I was home, I would get up and do the dishes. Like cleaning helps me get out of my head. I know some people it doesn't, but for me it does. I stress clean. So I would clean, I would vacuum, I would go for a walk, I would call a friend and talk about anything but my ex. If I was at work, I would find something to do. If you're at work, you can always find something to do. If I was in the car, I would put on one of my favorite songs, like whatever it was. I would just find a way to physically distract myself from the thought too. And yes, at the beginning, you are going to have to do this probably 12 times a day because you're used to that thought coming into your brain over and over and over again. And you just gotta do it. And I know it's frustrating and I know you're gonna feel like you're a broken record, but the more that you do it and the more that you don't just give in to the obsessive thinking cycle, because it truly is a cycle, and you redirect it. Think about it like in my course, I call it a rumination roundabout. And because that's what it's like. If you're stuck on the wrong lane of a roundabout, you're just going, going, and going. You got to get yourself off the fastest exit. And that's one way that you can do it. Can I DM you with a personal question I need advice about? You can, absolutely. Does that make sense though, with the obsessive thinking thing? Because again, y'all get a little quiet on my rants, and that makes me nervous because I'm like, I'm either losing them or you're just soaking in all the goodness. I don't know which one it is. I'm kidding. I'm not that arrogant. Oh, this is a great question. So why does it give me satisfaction when he tries to reach me? I see it on the blocked list. Okay. Someone says they're soaking it in. Oh, well, thanks. So why? Okay. The reason that it's satisfying when they try to reach out to you, it lets you know that you mattered in a way. Like, and that's how we interpret it. It's a validation of, okay, well, I did mean something to them. I mean, I think that's part of the reason why I fell into the trap of trying to stay friends with him. And this is just classic trauma bond, man. I didn't really want him in my life. Like I knew there was nothing about this person that could benefit my life. And not, well, that's probably the wrong way to say it, but he couldn't add anything to my life. If anything, he was taking things away. Like he was taking away my peace. He was taking away every conversation I had with him after we broke up, good or bad. I had a mild anxiety attack. Like I would literally have physical symptoms. Like my face would get flushed, my chest would get tight, my heart rate would go up. But I still wanted him in my life. I still wanted to be able to talk to him. And I was just like, and that's just classic trauma bond to me. And I think about it. And the reason why we struggle with that, or we get the satisfaction of them reaching out and whatnot, even if we know it's for an ulterior motive, it's because we loved them with our whole being. We were 100% in. It was 100% real for us. And we just would like to know if there was even a fraction of that on the other end. A lot of times there's not. Or maybe it is. And they're just not capable of healthy and they're not capable of love and not in the way that we are. But that's what we're looking for, is we're just looking for the validation that we mattered. Someone asks, is your trauma bond gone? Absolutely. I will be fine if I never see him ever again. And I don't mean that negatively. He caused me trauma. I'm honestly like, I got pretty quickly to the point, I would probably say, how many months? 5 months. is probably when I got to the point of indifference. And it was just this place where I didn't wish him harm. I didn't wish him well. I just didn't care. So it doesn't have, and I don't say this like, oh, it only took me 5 months. I think the reason that it only took me 5 months is because I was going to therapy every week. We didn't really talk about the relationship that much. We talked more about other things that, which this is important too, by the way. It's important to ask yourself what's happened in my life that's allowed me to accept these kind of behaviors. That's what we were more working on. But I don't know if it's the Latino in me. I don't know if it's the Taurus in me. I don't know if it's the gay boy in me and the pettiness of me. But it was just, I was like, I am not going to let this bitch have this much, have this much power over me. And I just tried everything. Fortunately, I did, not that I was an expert on anything, but I was a psychology major in undergrad. So there were like certain things that I knew, that I just tried. And I mean, I tried all sorts of things, and there's a lot of things that didn't work for me, but I was so burned out. Like, because the first 2 months, I honestly was just, I went wild. Like, I just was completely distracting myself. I wasn't dealing with it. Um, and then I hit this point of like pure mental and physical exhaustion. I almost lost my job. It was the first time that I felt unsafe to be alone, if you know what I mean, because I can't say it. um, but I wouldn't allow myself to be alone. And that pissed me off. The fact that I had gotten to that point, I was like, screw this and screw him. I'm not, no, we're not staying here. And so then that's when I just was like, the only thing I could think to do at first was to journal every day. And that's what I started with. And then, like I said, my therapist introduced the concept of the wellness wheel, which is a little bit different than how I like recreated it. But I started doing that, and I didn't have a journal. Like, I made that for y'all. I had a little Excel sheet that I was doing, but I started figuring out ways to take care of myself again. And it was small things like I said, doing my nighttime routine every day, calling my friends, spending time with my family. It was, and I did put, I had dating on there. I wasn't ready to date, but just going on dates, playing the field, just being single, whatever. Um, yeah, I had that on there. I had my spiritual life. That was a big one. I got reconnected with my spiritual life, which that was so important for me. Ooh, I'm not gonna spend too much time on that because I just feel myself getting emotional. But there was a lot of reasons I needed to reconnect with that. Um, so I started listening to worship music in the car again and like all this kind of stuff. So I would check in with myself every day. How did I take care of myself today? What categories did I fill in? And then I would look at the end of the week, like how did I take care of myself as a week overall? Um, and I don't recommend this at all. Hear me when I say, but the only benefit that I had by staying in contact with him was that as I started to learn about this, I was seeing it play out in front of my eyes, and I started to be able to see him for who he was live and in action. And so made the excuse that I wasn't going to contact because he owed me money, and he did. He was paying me every month, but really, I just wasn't ready. Um, and I watched with clear eyes how manipulative he was, and how much he lied, and how much he was just competing with me, really, is the best way to explain it. That by the time that he tried to drag out his last payment, per the usual, because at that point, like everything was disconnected. He moved to a different state. There was no point in us talking anymore once he paid this payment. So he drug it out and he wouldn't pay it. It was like, oh, this happened and this happened and this happened. And it finally just got to the point where I was like, I'm done asking. And I just blocked. Like I was so ready to go no contact by the time that I did. And it's because I saw him, like who he really was. And I just was done. So it does take time, but for me, trauma bonds breaking isn't about time alone. It's about the work that you do with the time, if that makes sense. Because they don't just go away on their own. They're not. And I don't say that, oh, thank you. I don't say that to be discouraging. I'm just saying that you need a plan. And and that's also, and again, I know I'm talking about this again, I'm sorry. But that's why I'm launching my community, is because I was just so desperate and I just wanted someone to tell me what to do. Like, even with my therapist, I just needed somebody to just give me a playbook. I don't know what that was on TikTok, but it was cool. Um, I played sports. I'm like, "Give me a playbook, like, just tell me what to do, I will do it." That's how desperate I am. And nobody could really tell me that. Even people that I knew that had been through this couldn't really do. The one piece of advice, which I shared with y'all earlier, is about if we have this mental time and energy to be thinking about that, we have the time to be putting back into ourselves. That was the only thing that made something click with me, but I still had to come up with everything on my own. And so, but you may not have the experience that I have. Like, you may not have taken psychology classes and all of this stuff, and it still didn't make me no expert on anything. And but I at least had something to go off of, and that's why I'm so passionate about the implementation side of things, and like what we're talking about, like right here on this live. That's what the coaching community is going to be. It is all about implementation. We're not going to talk about like narcissism very much, because again, I think if you get in that community, you know enough. Like, at this point, it's you can only know so much. You're never going to understand everything, but you know enough. Like, now it's time to shift your focus into taking care of you and getting much further than just getting over this individual. It's about rebuilding your life and building it in a way that you value yourself to not let this happen again. And that's why I'm doing it. So again, guys, for those of you that are like hopping on late and you didn't hear the announcement, I did just launch this coaching community. I'm doing what's called a founding member offer. The founding members, it's only $25 a month. You're going to help me build this essentially from the ground up. You're going to have direct access to give me feedback on what you want to see on like a monthly and a weekly basis. We're going to have like lives like this where we do training. We're going to do, if y'all missed it, if y'all missed it, I did like this question in a jar thing where like everybody submitted questions and I pulled them out from the jar. I'm going to probably do that every month in the coaching community, because especially if people like it, it's all going to be exclusive. It's off of social media. It's going to be on something completely different. So that way you can go and it's all organized and you can get to what you need. There's other people there that have gone through the same experience, so you can share your victories with them, help hold yourself and other people accountable, all of that. So if you're interested in that, in joining as a founding member, just send me a DM if you have any questions, or the link to that is in the bio on all my platforms as well. But please send me a DM if you're interested in it. It is in the concept phase, so there may be things I don't have the answer to, and I'll tell you that. But I know kind of like 75% of it figured out. But that's why I want to build it with y'all. We'll do it as founding members. I'm only keeping the registration for founding members open until March 31st. I'm closing it out at that point, and then we will all build it together for like a month or two, and then I'll relaunch it at a higher price. But founding members, you're locked in. As long as you're in the community, you're locked into it. I just distracted myself. Anyways, okay, here's a good question. Did it bother you when you found out that he had another relationship? This actually came over from Facebook. Or were you indifferent about that as well? I wish that I was indifferent then, because he was in another relationship within a month after we broke up, and I was still very much it definitely didn't help my obsessive thinking cycle, because I did not find out about the cheating until about 2 weeks after we broke up. And then about 2 weeks later, he's dating somebody. So, of course, what do y'all think I was asking myself? Well, how long has this been going on? So that's kind of what started the whole Instagram stalking, because I was like looking at this dude and figuring out where he was in the the order on Instagram followers, because it kind of puts them in order of when you started following them. So I mean, I became a pro, and it sparked a lot of that. But again, and it didn't help that we were friends. So he was all like, I just wanted to let you know, so you didn't see it on social media or anything, but I'm seeing someone, like he was doing me a favor. Fucker. It was so manipulative. It was gross. But again, and then he would talk to me about the issues that were going on in the relationship. Literally they were already having issues within 2 weeks. Wonder why. And it's so freaking funny, because I could tell he would send me screenshots of their conversation. This is how twisted this is. I forgot about all of this. He would send me screenshots of their conversation, and it didn't flow. Like, you could 100% tell that he had deleted some messages to make him look like the victim, and I was just like, "What?" Like, "Do you think I'm dumb?" Like, so but again, that was one of those things, like, staying in contact with him helped me see him for who he was because I wasn't in it anymore. But no, it 100% bothered me. It wouldn't bother me now at all. I don't care now, and quite frankly, whoever it is, it's like, "Oh, poor you." But oh goodness, he told you his problems with the new me. Yes, like he did, and it was so gross. Like it was, and what was crazy is in the screenshots that he sent me, he was saying certain like guilt trip things to this dude that he used to say to me, and it just made me see like this is just who he is. He does the same shit with a different person every time. Like this is just who he is, and so yeah, it just is what it is. But it was kind of a wild ride. Good lord. Into A's. So yeah, that was I honestly forgotten about a lot of that. Okay, I'm just going through really quick to see if I missed any questions that I want to answer. How long have you been out of the relationship? This May it will be 3 years. Okay, another question over on Facebook. When did you finally go no contact? So it was about 5 months after. My no contact journey was just that. It was a journey. So I knew I couldn't do it. Like if I'm just honest with y'all, I knew I couldn't. I wasn't ready, and I knew if I tried that I would fail, and if I failed, then I would feel worse about myself. And it just was like, okay, so if I really don't feel like I can do that, then what can I do? So at first, I just started off with, okay, I was very conditioned in the relationship. Hi, babe. I was very conditioned in the relationship that I had to respond like right away, like no matter what I was doing, like work or home or with family, with my kids, like it didn't matter. Like I had to respond right away. I was very conditioned to that because if I didn't, then I was automatically accused of something. I was with him for 18 months. So this was like 18 months worth of conditioning that happened. So and I still felt that after, like, I couldn't not respond to him if he texted me. So the first thing that I did, and I still didn't know if I could do it, was I told myself, like, okay, I'm not going to respond for an hour. And I set a timer on my phone, and I was dying that whole hour. But when the hour was up, yes, I texted him right away when the hour was up, but I made it for the hour. And that was like a really big deal for me. So and then once I started to get more comfortable with that, then I extended it. Maybe I went 2 hours, or I don't remember the exact progression if I'm honest, but I just would extend it out. And then it was, okay, I'm not going to respond to him the next day. And then it was, I'm not going to answer his phone calls. I will text him back, but I'm not going to talk to him on the phone anymore. Honestly, that was because I just wanted to forget his voice. And so it just kind of got to this progression. And then I remember somewhere in there, and again, I'm sorry, I don't remember all the details, but somewhere in there is when I blocked him on all social media, only had his phone number. At one point in time, I did change his name in my phone to something very random because sometimes the text coming through with just his name, like just seeing his name triggered me a little bit. So I changed it to something random, and that helped. And then eventually I got used to that one, so I changed it to something else. And then my last stage was I'm only going to talk to him about business related things. So like the money he owed me. There was a time period where we were still on the same phone plan and shared a storage unit. So it was like, okay, it's just going to be business related stuff. And then it stayed that way for a long, like probably about a month until his last payment was due to me, and he, like I mentioned earlier, he dragged it out. And so then I was just like, the payments were like $200, and I was like, you know what, $200 is not worth me even talking to him. And so I just blocked him. So it took me 5 months, but it was progressive. And you know what, I think that's okay. Yeah, there's a lot of very black and white no contact content out there, where just like, and there can be a lot of, and I don't think content creators mean to do this, but it can almost be a little bit shaming, a little bit. on the black and white stuff. I don't think they mean it that way, but sometimes it is where it's just like, either do it or you're stuck. If you got to progress into it, then progress into it. Do whatever works for you. I think it's better to do something like that than to try knowing you won't be able to do it and then you fail and you beat yourself up for it. Do something that you know that you can accomplish. And when you do that, your confidence is going to go up and you can push it a little bit further. There's obviously certain situations where, yes, you just need to do it for your own safety, and regardless of how hard it is, everything is situational. So I think it's better to, if you can't just go full on no contact right off the bat, then go progressive route. It worked for me. I wasn't necessarily in danger. And yes, I recognize that every time I talked to him, I had a physical response in my body. But the more I healed and the closer I got to no contact, the better that got. I was simultaneously working on my self-worth through my wellness practice and journaling and all of that. And it got to the point where I didn't want to talk to him. I just didn't want to, because I valued myself enough that I was like, he can't bring anything into my life that he has nothing to offer. And I don't want him in my life. So do it the way that it makes sense for you, if that makes sense. And yeah, in situations like this, sometimes limited contact, if you have kids together, that may be your only option. And that's okay. But yeah, I do think that there's a lot of like black and white language about no contact for sure. So just take that for what you will. Okay, guys, I have like 5 more minutes, and then because my fiance just got home, so we're gonna have dinner here pretty soon. So does anybody have any other last minute questions? So another reminder, just in case you kind of hopped on late or you missed it when I said earlier, I've launched a coaching community. It's called Trey's Tribe. This is like literally my heart in a community where it's all about implementation and truly how to heal. It's not really about narcissistic traits or the cycle or anything like that. I feel like there's enough of that out there. This community is strictly on how to move forward and how to redirect your thoughts to rebuild your life, build your self-esteem, build your self-confidence, not just to get over the narcissistic person, but to carry you way past that. So I'm inviting everyone to be founding members. It's only $25 a month. As a founding member, you'll literally help me build this community from the ground up, get direct feedback to me on what you want to see for weekly and even monthly content. And it's all going to be stuff like this. We'll do lives exclusively, questions in a jar things, masterclasses, like all of that. The offer is only open until March 31st. And then after that, it's being closed off. Where was I going with that? If you're interested or you have questions, but if you'd like to join me for that, please just send me a DM. And ask me any questions that you may have. It is still in the concept phase, I'll be honest, which is why I'm wanting people to help me build it. So I may not have all of the answers, but I will let you know if I do or if I don't. And yeah, just send me a DM, or there's a link in my bio and all my platforms too. The best outlet to send me a DM on regarding the community. I know YouTube, you can't send DMs on. So I would say either you can send it on TikTok. If you don't get a response from me on TikTok within 24 hours, my DMs are open, but sometimes they get filtered. So if you don't get a response from me on TikTok within 24 hours, Facebook and Instagram pretty much guaranteed to go through. So you can DM me on either one of those. But go ahead and send me a DM on TikTok. But if you want to be safe, you can go over to my Facebook and Instagram also. And the handle for, again, also, I mentioned this at the very beginning, but with all the drama, if you're on my TikTok live, with all the drama going on with TikTok potentially being banned, please make sure you're following me on my other platforms too. I'm on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. My handle's the same everywhere, except on Instagram, there's a 1 at the end of it. And yes, I did write a book. So just in case, I know this was asked earlier, but if you missed it, I had the Wellness Will Journal. I'm actually in the process of also writing my second book that is to be published, whatever the word is. So I'm excited about that one. But this one as well, this is that practice that I was talking about earlier, about just learning how to take care of yourself. This is the plan that I wish that I'd had, like really and truly. And it just is, it's pretty unorganized. I just had to use an Excel sheet, but this helps you shift your mental and physical energy out of all of that mental chaos and back into taking care of yourself through meaningful activities and reclaiming things also that maybe have negative connotations to them. So there's Amazon, and then I also have a PDF version as well. I love the wellness wheel. Oh, thank you. That's over here on Facebook. I appreciate that. You can get it on Amazon. I'm gonna update. I was gonna. I shouldn't have done this. So well, if you go to Amazon and just type in Wellness Wheel Journal, it's like the second one that pops up on that search. I'm gonna go ahead and add back. I took all of my regular link off and just put my community one back or on my bio. I'll switch that when I take that off because that way I'll have all my resources still. I was debating on that too. But anyways, so yeah, if you go to Amazon, I prefer the paper copy anyways. Go to Amazon, type in Wellness Wheel Journal. You'll literally see it. It's like, I think at one point in time, it was the first one that popped up, but I think it's the second or third now. Anyway, sorry, I got on I think out loud too. So sometimes I'm not even ranting. I'm just thinking out loud. And y'all just saw that just then. Like, oh, well, I shouldn't have done that, but I did. And now I'm going to do blah, blah, blah. That's the only child in me too. I'm an only child. So, if you've tried this, I'm going to put this on here on Facebook and YouTube as well. If you tried to DM me and it didn't work, send me an email, and I'm putting that up on there. My email is actually the same as my handle without the underscore. So I was like, yotrey1@gmail.com. Feel free to email me if you don't get a response from I'm sorry, my dog is freaking out. Can you like try to control her, please, and stop egging her on? My fourth child. My fiance asked me to get him pizza Lunchables today from the grocery store and fruit roll-ups. I was like, I'm sorry, are you my fourth kid? Like, I don't need 4. I'm very happy with my 3. So yeah, email me if you want to. Also, okay, seriously. Y'all like chill out. I have like 2 minutes left and then I'm done.
I'm holding a brush.
Okay. But yeah, you can DM me on here. Or like I said, I just put my email on Facebook since one of you guys said that it didn't go through. And sometimes it may show that it didn't go through because I have to like accept the message too. But just in case, that is there for y'all. Okay, well, since my fiance and my dog are making such a scene, I'm gonna go ahead and go so I can finish up dinner. I'm sorry, I'm so distracted right now. So anyways, founding member, Trey's Tribe, please come join. It's one-time offer for this price. It's gonna be probably like 45 or 50 after we launch it. It's only 25 for founding members. You literally can help me build this from the ground up. Oh, you have 2 corgis? Mine's a corgi. Can you tell by the noise? Okay, for real, can you stop for like 1 second? And then, y'all got me so distracted. Anyways, I literally lost my complete train of thought. Anyways, yeah, so just send me a DM or send me an email if you are interested in that. Oh, this is what I was going to say. I want you to also consider this when it comes to the coaching community. You may never want to do what I do. And quite frankly, I do not blame you at all. I don't. But maybe, just maybe, you being a part of this community from the ground up and helping build this and helping being a founding member with this, maybe this is the way that you're able to make an impact on this community. Maybe you're that person that someone comes in the group and starts to share their story, that you're able to relate to their story in a way that I'm never able to, because our stories are individual and they are unique. And maybe this is the way that you can make a mark on the survivor community. I genuinely, and I say this all the time, I love this community and I want it. I'm doing this so that way I can also be more accessible to the community, that you're able to take control of the content that you need and that you can get the steps that you need to move forward. And just consider that maybe this is the way that you can make your mark on the community, because maybe you have no interest in doing what I do, and that's just fine. This can be that way that you make your mark and that you can change other people's lives by being able to be a part of this and share your story and all of that. If you're still in your healing journey, that's fine. Please come. That's the whole point of this, is to get implementable strategies for your healing journey. But even just being able to share your story it breaks that feeling of isolation. It breaks that feeling of I'm the only one that understands this, or no one's going to understand me, or people are going to think I'm crazy. By you being able to say, you know what, friend, that's the exact same thing that I felt. So, so yeah, again, if you are interested in joining the community, it's Trey's Tribe. Founding members only $25 a month. We're going to build it all together from the ground up, relaunch it in a couple months, but you are completely locked in from where you start. So, oh my God, did y'all just hear my dog just like hack? She's such a lady. Anyways, I really enjoyed tonight. Is there a link? So yes, the link is directly in my bio right now. You can also just send me a direct message if you're interested. I just ordered the journal. Yay! I'm excited for you. I just, man, this practice really did absolutely change the trajectory for everything. But yeah, send me a DM. Sorry, ADD brain. Send me a DM, or I have my email up on Facebook if your message doesn't go through. If you're sending me a DM on TikTok and you don't get a response in 24 hours, send me one on Facebook or Instagram. Unreal, y'all. Okay, I really do gotta go because my entire household is just like falling apart right now. So I love you guys so much. Thank you for being a part of our live today. Sorry, it was a very loud and distracting ending. And I am going live tomorrow night as well. Before I tell you the wrong time, I'm actually going to do round 2 of the questions in a jar. I got so many questions submitted for this weekend that I did not have time to get through all of them. So I'm actually going to do it all again and be able to take my time and answer all the questions. So even if you didn't register, or if you did register and you missed it, come back. I'm going to be on live at 8:30 Central Time, and we'll do round 2 of questions in a jar. All right, I really am going to go now. Love you guys. Send me a DM if you have questions about Trey's Tribe, and I will see y'all tomorrow night. Bye.